There's a famous saying in radio that says you have to play the hits. And so, due to popular demand, I am playing the hits and bringing back the most popular guest that I've ever had on my podcast, assistant head coach of the Manitoba Bisons football team, Stan Pierre. Well, Stan, it's here we are again, 3 years later. This is the last time we did this. Isn't it crazy how
Yeah.
time flies?
Well, I remember it feels like no time flies because if I recall correctly, the last time was just at the beginning of the pandemic. So there's a lot of uncertainty around that and those 3 years, I mean, I'm sure things happened. I can't tell you what they were. It's just kind of a blur now. So yeah, it's good to be back. I mean, we're still doing this over the Zoom, but it's comforting to know that we could be doing it just as well in person.
Absolutely. And I mean, in that span of 3 years, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened. In the football program, and you guys have made a lot of great moves in the off season, and I'm sure that you're probably really excited to be back in the swing of things as you guys were in the last year and the year before, just being able to just be in your regular routine. Because when we last chatted, like it was just learn, learn, learn. Who knows when football's coming back?
Yeah, 100%. So we're getting ready to start next week, and everybody will be piled into that meeting room again, and it's much nicer. Yeah.
Uh, One of the last episodes I had of my podcast before I transitioned to this one was with Coach Urbanovich, and I asked him a question of the last one, and I said to him, Coach, can you tell me who the funniest person in the head coach or in the coaching staff is for the Bison's football team? And he said, I have to go with Coach Pierre. He's just really good at weeding out the young guys and keeping them on their toes. So do you do you concur that you are the king comedian of the Bison football coaching staff?
I don't know. Certainly that's for other people to decide. I mean, you know me, I certainly like to keep things light and in that room especially, if you miss say something or misstep, somebody's going to jump all over it. I would prefer it to be in a funny note as opposed to, perhaps a stinging note. So, coach, you made me laugh too. I'm going to miss him. It's going to be different without him.
I remember we had a conversation about the strength of the bond within a university coaching football locker room. How can you describe that relationship that you have with the guys who have been coaching alongside you, or you've coached when they played for the Bisons over the whole course of your time with Manitoba?
Yeah, I think we're really careful about who we bring into that room, which is important. I think the culture in the coaches room is no different than the cultures in the players room, and we don't see ourselves much differently than we did when we were playing. It's still a locker room kind of mentality in there, and that type of camaraderie. But that could just like in the players room, that could get off the rails really quick. So I think it's really important for us to have the right people in the room and people that we enjoy working with, as well as quality football coaches.
What do you think is the most challenging thing about putting together a coaching staff in university football?
Well, it's really tough because we're not putting together 12 full-time coaches, so there's the aspect of them having to give up so much of their time and so much of their time to the level to coach at this level. So it's still a higher level of coaching, but they don't get to spend the type of time that maybe a full-time coach would. So that commitment is hard on the coaches and their families. So that has to be um, nurtured and understood, and there's a lot of flexibility and give and take, and we understand what's going on in those guys' lives.
When you first went into coaching, did you ever envision that you would grow into the role that you have now with the Bisons?
No, no. When I started coaching, well, I started coaching high school first, and then I transitioned to university, and I just loved the game, and I was fresh out of the game, so I wanted to stay involved. And it just evolved. When I started, I was a volunteer coach, man, and I was grinding away and at my job, planning practice and all those sort of things. And um, it's not something that I pursued or looked to as a career choice, but when the opportunity came, then yeah, I was certainly excited to take the opportunity.
I think we've also had this discussion about how people who are in the coaching ranks eventually, I don't know if you can really plan to necessarily be in this position at university, but that the word is that being in university sometimes is better than what people may think when they're trying to get to the CFL or the NFL. How do you contrast the pros and cons of young coaches who are on the rise if they're trying to get to university versus if they're trying to be a professional coach in the CFL or NFL?
Well, the NFL, I mean, that's really hard. I think people, I think they should look at it like in a regular marketplace. So, if you're looking at a place in the marketplace where salaries are, 4, 5, 6 million, down to, what would be the lowest paid coach in the NFL? I don't know, 500,000. You know, those are um, those are going to be highly sought after jobs by it's going to be very if you want to go out and make $1 million a year in your life, that is going to be a highly competitive marketplace that you're going through. So that's going to be tough. And especially in Canada, if you're going to follow that route, you're gonna have to get into the United States sooner rather than later and start, you know, becoming a GA somewhere. And how do you even get that contact to get that started? So those things are all really hard. If you want to coach high school, a lot of times when guys are coming to me and they're like, "Oh, coach, I want to do what you do," I was like, "Okay, there's not very many of us, so I think, let's have a plan." So maybe I think a good avenue is maybe get into education, and you can become a teacher, you can become a high school teacher, and you could coach high school for your whole life if it doesn't work out here, but you're being able to provide for your family. So I think, the first thing I would say to those guys is you can't chase these dreams. I know everybody says, "Oh, you should go and chase your dreams." Well, everybody who says that is, sitting at a convocation stage. They're millionaires or super millionaires, and they've gone through some they're Oprah, and they've gone through some really unique path to becoming successful. And they're like, "Well, I just stuck to my dreams." Well, I guarantee you there's another million kids who stuck to their dreams who didn't have a backup plan, and it didn't work out so well. So I think you really need to be focused on, yeah, I really want to do this, and I'm gonna maybe put my all into this. But I think being realistic and protecting yourself, and ask yourself why you truly coach. Is it, I want to coach at the CFL because I have some sort of status? Like, what's the difference? If you're coaching and you're getting paid, what's the difference if you're coaching CFL players, high school players? There's different challenges and different rewards, but um, if somebody said to me, "Oh, wouldn't it be great to coach in the NFL?" I don't know. Maybe it may be worse. I don't know. I know I would be making more money, but I've never been motivated by money, so I'm not sure that's a carrot that's gonna, or prestige. I've never been motivated by prestige or whatever, so that's not a carrot that would necessarily entice me. I mean, maybe it would. Maybe it would be so professionally challenging and rewarding. I don't know. I know that I'm uh, very fulfilled in the life that I'm living right now, and I feel very lucky to be living it. But if I wasn't, um, I would be doing something else. I might be coaching as a volunteer at a different level, but I would be doing something else.
So why do you coach at the university level? What is it that makes you feel fulfilled about your position?
Well, it's not so much that I'm coaching at university. I mean, coaching at university is a happenstance. I was coaching and a position came available and I got it. Um, I think that um, I would be fulfilled coaching at other levels as well. most educators who are educating to help kids reach their goals probably feel the same way. So I love that aspect. I do it in sports, so there's a competitive aspect that is really beneficial for me because that's something that obviously when you've been competing in things your whole life, it's nice to have those things still to to get your juices flowing. You know, whenever I talk to a group of kids, you know, and I talk about how what I love about sport is we can be so irrational about it that we get the same emotions almost like we would if a situation was life and death. And we could test ourselves to that limit, but it's not life and death. And you get to start over again and learn from your mistakes. And you know, nobody gets hurt. You know, you do get hurt, obviously, but you know what I mean in the real world speaking. So that's what's fulfilling about it to me. It's not that I'm at university, it's that, you know, it's scratching an itch that I have. And I love teaching my class too. You know, I just like hopefully helping kids find their path and find what they want to do to make their lives as fulfilled, hopefully, as mine is.
You talked about this idea of people saying follow your dreams and how you have to be pragmatic to a certain level. How did you balance that as you entered the workforce and as you graduated from university? Because obviously, as any listener would know who's understands the business model of the Canadian Football League, is that you're not going to become generationally wealthy, even if you
Right.
play for 20 years.
Yeah. I think I I think it's really important for people to find something that they're good at. You know, if I was I mean, I don't want to sound, you know, arrogant, but I'm pretty good at this. You know what I mean? So if I wasn't, uh it would be the wrong path for me to chase. So no matter how much I wanted it, you know, if I'm like, I'm going to be a football coach no matter what, but I was an amazing computer engineer, I you need to follow that path of computer engineering. And in my experience, the things that you're good at, you typically like anyways. You know, so find something you're good at and something that you like, and you need to focus on those things. Um, you know, if you really love football, but you're not talented enough to make a living at it, go volunteer somewhere, do some things football wise, but follow the path that you're going to best support yourself and, you know, hopefully a family in the future if that's what you want. That's what I would say to people. You know, I wouldn't say lots of people come in here and they think they can be coaches and they just can't. They just don't have what it takes to interact with the kids. And it has little to do with intelligence. It has to do with a lot of things. You know, people follow people for different reasons. You know, people follow people who are nefarious and have bad intentions and are bad actors, but they have some sort of charisma. And the next thing you know, literally people are drinking the Kool-Aid. Well, you know, that's somebody who has something that can help people lead. So some people just don't have it, you know, that people are would and they could be as smart as could be. That doesn't mean there's not a place for them. You know, maybe they become some sort of analyst or something like that, and they're not front facing. Um, but typically when you're developing skills like that, um, you're developing skills that could help you hopefully in the marketplace, you know, not just all I know is football, but I can't communicate. Well, you're doomed, you know. Yeah, you need to find applicable skills.
You'd worked in business. I remember you telling us stories before you got actually into being a full-time coach. How do you contrast that experience with what it's been like coaching university football?
Um, well, I mean, on a personal note, I mean, the main difference it was always an interesting dynamic of me in business having to hunt for my food, you know, as opposed to having a steady income. That was always a real contrast to me. And some of the things that come with that you notice in in a place like a university or a bureaucracy, I find interesting. There's some comfort, I guess, that comes with that, but that can be really detrimental when you're in a a business that's ultra competitive, and you really need to stay on top of things. And so I've been able to develop, this sounds really bad, but I've been able to develop internal pressures that have matched what I felt in the business world. Even though maybe I have more security, I don't let myself think that way, because I just find it detrimental to who I am and how I work, and what I need for motivation. So, but otherwise, every marketplace is selling something, and they're tangibly different, but there's a lot of similarities in how you're organizing people, how you're developing common goals, how you're building strategically for the long term, and how you're putting out fires in the short term. A lot of those things are stuff that everybody will deal with, no matter what their industry is. And my industry is just football. It's just a little different that way. But I have, there's 100 and something people involved in this organization. It's a medium-sized organization, so there's lots to manage.
What would you say that comes to mind first when you think of greatest lessons that you've learned, whether it was a positive or a negative one, in your time as the assistant head coach with the Bisons, once you became full-time, that is?
Yeah. Boy, that's a tough question for me. I think we've talked about this before. I don't do a lot of reflection. I'm very forward facing. I mean, I try to make sure I learn from my mistakes, and try not to repeat my mistakes. But I think what you're asking for is kind of life lessons, sort of thing. And I don't know, what you put in is what you get out. And I think, I don't know if these are lessons, but these are things that I carry with me, and I try to impart to the players, if they really want to achieve or overachieve. You get out what you put in, and you have to be willing to get hurt. You just do. You have to be willing to get hurt, get hurt repeatedly until you achieve what you want to achieve. So if you're not truly into it, and you kind of protect yourself emotionally, maybe you don't get hurt, but it's really a lot tougher to achieve. So some of these goals that we look to achieve here are hard, and I still strive. If we had never won a Vanier Cup, and my career was 2 Vanier Cups, 2 losses, a national semifinal, which we lost in the last minute. If that was my career, I would still be trying to achieve that goal, but those things would have been extremely painful, because I've put everything into achieving that goal. And I was lucky enough to do it, but I fully will appreciated that there's a chance that I wasn't going to do it, because it's hard. And I was okay with that. I knew I was going to feel pain. But nobody achieves anything without going through it. Nobody. Successful entrepreneurs will be littered with a trail of failure. And you just have to be, failure is not the enemy. Failure is the journey. You pick yourself up from learning what you failed about. You make yourself better, and that's how you grow. And it's not a cliche. That's what it is. That's what it is. The first time we were in a Can West final, we were at home. I think we might have been undefeated, or 7-1 or something, and we got smashed in that final. And I'll never forget how bad a job I did in that game. I'll never forget it. It was something that I don't know
Was
if it
it
was hubris.
2006?
No, like 2000.
Oh, okay, okay.
2000. Uh, and I, I just, I just, I just did a really bad job. I did. I wasn't even during the game. There's things that I could have corrected, but I was, you know, I was just out of my depth almost in that game. It was really bad. Um, I was thinking about other things, thinking about what happens if we win, then we go here. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff, you got to be where your feet are and you got to, but that I needed to learn that lesson. I just did. I needed to learn that lesson. And, I may have a bad plan, um, in the future, but it's not going to be because I I didn't have all my I's crossed or dotted and T's crossed. So um, yeah, it was, and that I'm just telling you, man, that really hurt. Like it really did. And yeah, and then next year we went to the Vandy Cup and we lost, and that really hurt. And but we persevered, and that was great. But there's a chance we couldn't have, and in the end, I you're gonna heal and you're gonna, maybe, you know, um, people always move the goal line on themselves. So they say, okay, well, I really want to do this. But once they get to that thing, then they go, but I really want to do this and I really want to do this, And if your goal is to become this full-time coach, like and then you get there, and then if you have all these failures chasing this new goal, you have to look back and say, well, you got what you wanted, but there's some pain that could come with that. You have to accept it, and that's with anything. That's with anything.
There's a book an audiobook I've been reading recently called 10x is easier than 2x. I'm talking
Did you
about
say there's
entrepreneur.
an audio book that you've been reading lately?
Sorry, listening to
Fair
a 10-hour podcast that is also in the form of reading if you so choose to purchase
enough.
the book, called 10x is easier than 2x, and is talking about entrepreneurs and how transformational thinking is what is going to get you to the next level, not just doubling your efforts. And there's a concept within the book they call the gap and the gain. And it's also another book written that it was made by the same authors. And they talk about this idea of you're saying where when you are constantly looking forward at the horizon, the ideal, you're always going to be in the gap. You're never going to be satisfied. Hedonic adaptation is going to kick in, and you're just constantly going to feel unsatisfied. Whereas when you look at the gain, that's looking in hindsight and seeing, wow, this is how far I've come. And you're only comparing yourself to where you've come from, not where you're going to go, because then you're just going to feel miserable. And so it sounds like that's what maybe a bit of, even if you don't reflect that often, reflection that you can be satisfied with looking back on, knowing that, yes, the 2007 Vanier Cup was great, but all the failures that led up to that is what made you feel, to use your own words from our last podcast episode, the unfettered joy when it was finally over and you can just breathe and relax, knowing that you had reached the top of the mountain finally.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you brought that up, because I want to articulate that. It's not that I don't have memories, and I don't have great memories, and it's not that I'm not happy. This is one thing. It may be unique to me that is different than maybe from some other people I listen to. Like tortured souls who can never be happy. I'm happy. I just still continue to see the horizon and strive for it. But I can be hurt by something and it tangibly hurts me. But I can compartmentalize that to that thing and that emotion for that time. And if everything's great at home, I can appreciate that and separate the other thing. And I've always been really good at that. And I think people need to be self-aware. Are you going down that hole where your professional life you keep striving, you keep striving, you keep striving. You could read a million books about people um, who strove and left a wake of everything behind and didn't care about anything, family, anything like that, or neglected it at least. And there was some of that when I was younger, for sure. But I wasn't neglecting it. I was just putting it off. I was putting it off. So I just said, well, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be selfish, and I'm going to spend all my time doing this. And so I've always been able to separate those two things. So um, I feel comfortable in that. I like that. I still have this inner desire to achieve things. Um, but if I don't, um, you know, I still allow myself to be hurt by those things and give it my all. But I'm okay with it. And as I reflect now, thinking, maybe I'm okay with it because we won. I don't know. Maybe it's unfair. Maybe I am, um, but I will say, you know, I put myself out there before, and I had lots of failures, and I kept coming back. So and I was enjoying myself even with all the failures. So I think you make a really good point, and I think that's exactly what I'm saying. But um, I kind of want to be in the middle. I don't want to just smell the roses all the way coming up. I also want to I want to appreciate my life, but I still want that those horizons to keep changing and keep building and keep getting new goals.
You touched on a point of when you invested your time more into football, and then as you get older, then you invest time in your family. How's becoming a parent changed your perspective or philosophy on coaching football and what you do?
Well, I don't know. Um, Emotionally, certainly it's changed some stuff. Uh, I mean, I just think we manage it, like our family just manages it. I'm not sure that I'm spending less time at football, during football. Um, but the things that are tangible as our times together, also, Matthias, what I do a lot, um, because we don't have this situation where we have a staff of 6 people in the office. I'll stay at home and work. You know what I mean? So at least I can, even if I'm not really there, I'm there. You know what I mean? So worst thing happens, somebody falls and hits their face. I'm still there to give somebody a hug or something like that, or say goodnight or those sort of things. So I've definitely ensured that I did those things. When I was younger, I would just be in the office all the time. I would be there all the time. So now I stay at home more. I don't want to make it sound like, so then I stop what I'm doing and we go to the zoo. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen all the memes in the last week or so and heard all the audios of, oh, I lost my poor husband Edgar. Like stop telling everyone I'm dead. And it's like wives during football season, because it's like, or girlfriends during football season. Like, that once August hits to the end of November, like,
Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. I really look forward to, and I hope they do too, like things like the night before the game, where we get pizza on Friday and we watch Friday night football and we're all together, and then Saturday morning, they come down after the game, and they're at the game, which is comforting, and all those things. So I just enjoy those things. Like those are great things. And in one of the things about, you talk about the NFL versus our world. In our world, you know, it's 3 or 4 months. It's not 7. you know. So it's a sacrifice, but to me, just take advantage of the other 8 kind of thing when you can be around a little more.
Well, I'll say there's nothing more therapeutic than being in the coach's room eating Domino's after a win.
Yeah,
That is an experience unlike any other.
no, that is good. Yeah, that is good. Winning is good. Winning it's yeah, it's just a great feeling, and you just keep chasing it.
What's do you ever reflect? Like, I mean, I know you said you don't reflect a lot, but at least in my memory, there's been some crazy games that have happened in the last few years. Are there any wins at home in particular that stick out to you that you still, when you think back on, you smile a little bit extra when you think of them?
Mm-mm. I can't remember any of them. We have these. I remember things that happen, and so I'll say, remember this happened, and we'll try to reflect on what game it was. And some guys are really good. They'll go, we were at home. This was the score, or whatever. I'm like, what? And they'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, that's how much we won by? I go, no, I don't remember that. Like, I just don't remember any of that stuff. But if I put the game on, I'll start remembering things and calls and how the game was going and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know why I remember some things other than others. I mean, there's been a lot of games.
I mean, yeah, that's
Mm.
I always found that, like, for some reason, all the games at home are always so crazy, and there was always something up, and whether it was should be beating a team by more or a comeback or whatnot. And I just remember afterwards in the locker room that there would always be the same smile on your face, like, well, we won, or oh, this play was crazy, but I guess it doesn't matter. On to the next week.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. To be honest, I don't particularly like the games. That's also probably part of it. It's the part of it I dislike the most. I really like practice. I really don't like the games. I I don't. I think some people find that really odd, but I just don't. I'm super relieved when we win, and it's not great when we lose. Um, and you know, but I look forward to it. I look forward to the challenge, but just living in those 3 hours is never great. Yeah, it's never a great experience.
Coach Mitchell said the exact same thing when I interviewed him. He said, he's like, I hate game day because I'm so nervous, and it can be easy to overthink things, and there's all these different elements, and one play can make a huge swing, and it's harder to stay in a consistent rhythm compared to when you're in practice and guys are calm, and if they make a mistake, they're like, it's okay, flush it, learn, keep going.
Yeah, I think especially game day. I mean, coaching is important, but players are the most important things. And on game day, what I'm most fearful as is one of my interjections has hurt the players' opportunity to be successful, and that's what stresses me the most. It's not that we win or lose the game. It's that I don't. That's a time where I can really cause harm. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
flat out. And I just don't. I don't want to get in the way of them being successful. So that's part of the pressure I put on myself to make sure that I'm really prepared, because
That's the afternoon games. Those are, yeah, I don't know. I enjoy game day, I guess, from my perspective, because I don't have any impact on what's going to happen. But I understand from the perspective of the coaches that I've seen it before as a player, where, again, I don't know strategy. I don't know, hey, this is what scheme and whatever. I just show up, kick the ball, whatever. And when guys after the game are like, well, they called this play, or they changed everything, and they were trying to outthink the room, and I just hear those stories, and I'm like, man, that's. I remember when I played in BC.
you'll have to tell the audience that you were not here when that happened. When people were saying, "Oh, they out thought the room when you were kicking or whatever," that was that at Manitoba.
No, I'm
Yeah.
I'm no. That was when I played in Winnipeg junior, and then when I played in BC, I remember hearing stories of
You
guys.
don't have to tell any tales outside that. I just want people to make it clear that was not here.
Oh, no one,
Yeah,
trust me,
yeah,
nobody was out
fair
thinking the
enough.
room when Manitoba,
Fair enough.
not whatsoever. I mean, it's like Coach Mitchell or you said, like a game happens 3 hours. Like it almost sounds to me the way you're describing it as if you're trying to diffuse like an atom bomb, and you're like, I don't want the wrong move or the wrong cord cut to make everything blow up.
It's a great analogy. Sometimes it kind of does feel like that for sure, you know. Um, yeah, sometimes it does, you know. Sometimes you're in a game, man, and it's just everything is just good. Like you're one step ahead of things and everything is just cruising. And then there's some games where you're one step behind and it's not good. It's not good. You have to reset and figure out what's going on and fix it fast. Yeah.
Was the 2007 Vanier Cup, did you find that game was like particularly stressful in terms of the flow of how it went, or not as much?
Hmm. Okay. Maybe you'll find this interesting. Maybe people will. My main focus in 2007, when we got back to the game, was to make sure that I stayed as calm and in the moment as possible. Because I remember in 2001, after the game, just thinking like what just happened? It was like I wasn't even in my own body. Like I let the emotions of the moment, so I just wanted to make sure I was present. So that was my main focus in that game, was just to make sure I was present, make sure I was thinking clearly. um you know um After the first drive, we were in control of the game. There was so that was good. We were staying on top of things, but I just wanted to make sure that I was really in the moment. And so other than when Matt got hurt and how long that took, all our running back. So it was 2007. It's a different time, my thought as the game was going on, we're up two scores and we're out of running backs. And, I'm thinking to myself, great, how are we going to run this thing out? Because that was the thought process back then, right? Like, keep the clock moving, run this thing out, and let's get out of here. And we don't have, I'm thinking, well, the only way they can get back in this game is if we keep stopping the clock, and that was, I don't know how stressful that was, but it was in the back of my mind, like, as the game went on. So that was just the flow of that football game.
Well, before we wrap for our time today, I just wanted to have a handful more questions
Yeah.
to have a little bit more fun before we part. So, who is your favorite football player growing up as a kid?
Lawrence Taylor.
Why Lawrence Taylor?
I don't know, but he was the best defensive player in football when he was playing. So when I was in my formative years, when I was a teenager, he was on the Giants, and the Giants were getting good, and he was the most dominant player in football. So that was an easy one, Lawrence Taylor.
Who is your favorite football coach you ever had during your time playing?
Boy, I hate to single one out because I got a lot of things from all of them, and I just appreciate, growing up, like those guys are volunteers, you know what I mean? And they're giving their time for me to be able to, when you're a kid, you're irrational, right? So when I was a kid, um, I didn't know. I know I wanted to play football. I didn't know where I should go to play. I grew up in Waverly Heights. There wasn't a football team at the community center at Waverly Heights, and I ended up going to Crescentwood because one of my best friends said, "Hey, Crescentwood has football. You should sign up," kind of thing. And it went from there. And you know, all those coaches from that point on, I just appreciate that they were there to help me have my journey, and um, experience what is to me the most rewarding and fun game in the world.
And what are the three best books that three best nonfiction books you've read?
Autobiography of Malcolm X is one of them. It's all going to be biographies. I think Patriot Reign on the Patriot stuff. Trying to think of another. Bill Walsh's book was good. It's going to be something in that genre, something about there's a book I wrote I read on business. I can't remember the title. It's Bill Gates' favorite book. That was good.
Good to great.
But no, it wasn't good to great. It wasn't good to great. Oh my God, that was a thing. Yeah, boy. But definitely the most formative book when I was growing up was the autobiography of Malcolm X for sure.
No, that's a real powerful one for sure to enjoy. Well,
I don't read any fiction. It's always a biography on somebody or something like
yeah,
that.
I when people say, "Hey, you ever just read to enjoy?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do, but it's just nonfiction or it's business books or it's whatever."
Yeah.
Like I don't have time to read fantasy or whatever. That's not my thing.
Yeah, but I'm like you now. I listen to everything now. So it gets jumbled to me what I mean, to be honest, um there's so many good informative podcasts out there now. It uh that takes all the spare time I would use. Actually, even more so, right? Because I go to the grocery store, I put in a podcast. I'm driving, I put in a podcast. You can't read during those times, right? So
Yeah.
that's where I get all my information now. Plus, I consume it better. I was a TV baby, so I would always retain stuff that is spoken to me as opposed to reading it. When I was in school, I always had to reread things over and over again because my mind would start to drift, right? That's how my brain works.
I feel that big time growing up with TV and having to watch TV and what could ever happen to TV. Like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
well, this has been a whole whack of fun, and I'm excited for the football season again to start because there's no other time of the year like September to November,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I'm glad that we were able to chop it up again for the first time in a while.
Yeah, man, anytime. Glad you're back home.